Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers a certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
Do you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and on TalkStream Live. If you'd like to check us out on the social media sites, our group is facebook.com/groups/X-Zone Radio TV. And our website, where you can find out what we've done, what we're doing. Sometimes we put what we're going to do. We like surprises. www.xzoneradio.com. And to find out all the great programming that we have on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Speaking about the X-Zone Broadcast Network, my guest this hour is the hostess with the mostess of the Science of Magic, Gwilda Wiyaka. And Gwilda, welcome back to the X-Zone, my dear friend. How are things in beautiful Colorado?
Well, it's a Rocky Mountain high up here.
Yeah, I more than one way. You know, I've come up with a real neat way for our listeners to better understand what you do.
Okay.
3 simple alphabets. S-T-D. Stop those demons.
That's great.
Thought you'd try and pull one over on me, did you, kid?
Well, I try.
Again, congratulations on the Science of Magic. I love your show.
Oh, thank you. We have so much fun.
I was talking about one of your guests on the show the other day. The gentleman who was with the native he's a native Alaskan.
Yes, Elleron.
That's right.
Ilarion, that's right, Ilarion. Yeah.
And you know, it broke my heart when he was telling us, and during the show, that after Russia left, when Alaska was sold to the United States, that the Americans treated the indigenous people like slaves.
Yes, I guess they were enslaved on that island by the U.S. government until the 1960s.
My God.
I mean, it just boggles the imagination, doesn't it?
It certainly does, to think that, you know, here you've got a country that prides itself in breaking the chains of slavery, just to find out in the 60s they were still doing it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Listen, we've been talking a lot about, I don't know how we describe how tonight worked. Misa in the first segment, lovely lady. I know that she's been on your show.
Yes, she has, and she's a dear.
Yeah, she was talking about this new star body power.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we were talking about an awakening, how certain parts of the DNA are starting to click open, and how people are tuning into something, but they don't know what it is they're tuning into. So how do you, as a shaman, try to get people to understand what they're supposed to be tuning into and how they tune into the right frequency?
Well, it's a matter of process, because we've gone through a time where our solar system has been in a darker part of the universe, if you will, darker part of the galaxy, and now we're moving into a place where there's much more high frequency, and it's starting to impact the Earth. And first it hits the sun brings it into the earth, if you will. And so we're being bathed in a much higher frequency environment. And what that's doing is bringing greater luminosity or light, which is activating our chakric systems to a different level, which is activating our DNA. And so basically we are actually evolving, but it's something that you have to involve yourself in. You can't just sit around and expect it to happen. It's a participatory thing. You can either stick your head in the sand and deal with the pressure that comes to bear because you aren't moving with everything else, or you can start to reevaluate the way you live your life and who you are and what you are, and evolve.
So how do we get, or why am I going to take responsibility for how we get this message across to people? Because it's everybody's responsibility, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. There's no difference between you and I. There's no difference between any of us. We're all really one. It's just that we've been in a slow period or a lower frequency where it's been polarized and segregated. But really, we're all the one same source. And as we get into higher frequency, it's less polarization, more unity, and we start to recognize that it's an inside job, but it's recognizing that there's no difference between me and the guy standing next to me. We're all one.
You're not teaching people anything new. The indigenous, like the Native Americans, and like this gentleman you had on the show the other day from Alaska, and the indigenous people of Australia and other parts of the world, this is common knowledge to them. How come there are other parts of the world that just don't clue into this? And yet it's been known for centuries.
Yeah, the old shamanism is between 50 and 60,000 years old, latest report.
Wow.
And it's at the basis of every indigenous culture on the planet. In fact, even the Celts and everything else have shamanism at their roots. But Ilarion, when the gentleman from Alaska, when he was talking, he said, and I know I've heard this from my Native American teachers as well, is that they call us the inside out society, in that we at some point got a better idea, thought we didn't have to live according to the laws of nature, thought we could, instead of taking our share in its season, just take it all and be greedy. And we've created a pretty scary imbalance around us. And we think inside out and backwards of the way nature works. And this is what's about to correct itself.
Man, that is this a cleansing that's going to be happening?
Well, yeah, it is a cleansing. It absolutely is. I don't know that it's going to be a gleaning of the herd, but if we don't get on deck, it certainly will have to be, because we can't sustain life the way we've created it here, this artificial environment. We're taking the planet out with us.
So how do we change this around? How do we make lemonade out of this lemon that we find ourselves in these days?
Well, Rob, what I find is amazing is that with this higher frequency and more light coming in, there's more options. If reality is just a frequency, which is, of course, what Einstein proposed, if reality is just a frequency and suddenly we're coming into a much higher frequency, the more of us that participate in channeling that frequency into our worlds, the more transmutation can happen, and it can happen very quickly. I actually have hope. I know that our native friend, he said his tribe says, you might as well quit trying to change it out there. Come on home and hunker down because it's too late. I'm not buying into that. I really feel that we can make a difference, and it has everything to do with channeling more light through us into our worlds and living according to what we're finding there.
But doesn't it take people to realize that there is a problem? And unless they realize there's a problem and they actually want to make a change to be part of the solution, nothing will change.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And we're also being forced here in a certain regard, in that we are under a pressure cooker right now. We're coming into, like I said, a higher frequency time where you either have to really batten down the hatches into denial or move with the times. And the times are bigger than we are. So there's a lot of support, actually, for evolution. And the old way of being polarized and segregated is not being supported anymore by the ambient frequency. So we're actually getting help from from life, from the way things are working out there.
So is this Mother Nature's way of doing things? Like she lets us be stupid long enough that we slap ourselves on the side of the head and say, "Oh, Jesus, now I get it."
Probably. You know, these cycles repeat over and over and over again. It's just that they're so long between times that we don't have any recorded history of them, just myths and legends and prophecies. And this time has obviously been prophesized by many indigenous cultures as well as the Bible itself.
I wanted to speak to you today about intent, because you and I have been discussing intent, and I was wondering if you could share intent with our listeners.
Sure. You know, normally what we think about if we're thinking about our future is what's going to happen to me, right? And if we go to a psychic, that's our question. What's going to happen to me? When am I going to find Mr. Right, to quote a friend of mine? When am I going to make the big money? What's going to happen to me? And that's a very passive stance. And what we're finding is that our intention or our words and everything actually has an effect at the quantum level. I mean, right down to the observer effect in scientific experimentation, we're finding that we do have an effect at the quantum level which affects outcome. But if what's going to happen to me in passive, that doesn't have much of effect. But if we clarify our intent and hold to it, that's active. That starts to build the matrix around what we're intending at the quantum level, and it can draw to it the things that will fulfill that intent. Then we have to take advantage of them.
So would that be like the old saying, if you confess it, you will possess it? Or is that what you're doing by saying to the universe, this is what I want? This is what I want. This is what I want. That you're confessing that you have a need or you have a desire. And is this how it works?
Kind of. But there's one of the things that really throws a wrench in that works is we all think that I want to win the lottery. I want to win the lottery, or I want a great brand new car.
Mm-hmm.
Or, those are created solutions. And the key to setting out clear intent is finding out what our true desire is. What is our real heart's desire? And it's a real interesting exercise, because the things we think we want are created solutions, not really what we want. So say, for instance, if we want to win the lottery, why do we want to win the lottery? Because I want a lot of money. Why do I want a lot of money? So I can buy nice things. Why? So people think well of me. Why? So they'll love me. Well, it's not the lottery you want, it's love. And so going through that kind of an exercise can really clarify intent.
And of course, if you don't have a lottery ticket, you're not going to win it. This is why I get it. It makes me laugh when all these people years ago used to get the emails that you've won the lottery, and it's if you send us so much money, this is the administration cost, da da da. And so many people got sucked into this, and I often wondered, well, did it ever dawn on you that you didn't have a ticket to the lottery? So how the hell could you win it?
Exactly. And when I'm working shamanically with people, I can help them clear their blocks and their damage from their history. But unless they choose to live their life in a different way, it's not going to make any difference in their world. So I can clear the blocks, but then when it comes time to manifesting things into the physical, people have to take action. They have to set clear intent, and then they have to act on the things that come to them that will fulfill that intent. There's no replacing it.
So basically, it's cause and effect.
It really is, except that we are the causal factor. We have created the reality we're living. We need to uncreate and recreate if we don't like it.
Go back to square A.
You got it.
You know?
Out with the old, in with the new.
Exactly. How difficult do you find it sometimes to get that very simple message across to people?
Oh, it's one of the toughest things I do.
Really?
Yeah, people are so indoctrinated into being victims of this system that you can tell them over and over again, but if you don't believe it and you don't hold the faith, you drop what you were just about to manifest. So if you can't hold the vision, if you can't hold the faith, if you can't hold the intent, it just falls away. So like in Star Wars when Luke Skywalker was trying to pull this great ship out of the swamp, and finally Obi-Wan gets sick of it and goes ahead and does it for him. No, Yoda did it for him. He says, "I don't believe it." And he says, "And that is why you fail."
That is an excellent way of putting it. So you can only have success if you believe you're going to have it. So it goes back to my old thing about the difference between a dream and reality is just doing it.
You've got it, because if you hold the faith, you can't just sit there and hold the faith and expect it to plop in your lap like that unbought lottery ticket. But if you hold the faith and then pay attention to your promptings, into the circumstances that are coming into your life that could feed that intent and take advantage of them, that's the key.
How important are animals to the existence of mankind?
Animals are part of the entire matrix of the oneness of the planet, of the galaxy, of everything. And every animal that has ever lived is still energetically around us, the dinosaurs, everything. So the frequencies, this is interesting, the frequency that the Earth is expressing at any given time supports different groups of animals, different types of people. And so we come and we go, and people get all worried about extinction, but nothing is ever really extinct. It's just not expressing in physical form at any given time. The animals, nations, each hold a particular frequency that supports the whole.
Is that why we see ghosts? Is because no matter what it is, whether it is a dinosaur or whether it is a human being, that the energy is always around? And is this what we're grasping a glimpse of, is the energy of the person who was?
Yes, you would know this better than most, in that you work with frequency with radio. If I'm listening to, classical rock and I'm complaining that it's not classical music, but if I don't change the dial, I'm still going to be listening to classical rock.
Yeah.
So basically, what we shamanically teach people to do is to shift where they're tuning in order to see things that we don't normally see. What we see is what we've all agreed upon as reality, which is a very narrow bandwidth of frequency. And that's the beauty of this intense light coming in, is that the bandwidth is widening, and we can choose to tune in to much larger bandwidth, or we can choose to stay right where we are.
But in today's new age arena, how does somebody know what isn't legitimate and what is foo-foo? Because there's a lot of it out there.
There really is. And, a lot of well-intending people, but they're unprocessed. And so they're actually touting themselves as professionals or authorities, when what they're doing is dictating their own damage, dictating their own reality, dictating their own denials. The good thing about the new age and all this stuff is it's free form. It's not regulated. We don't have to be stifled. And the bad thing about it is, without regulation, we don't have any accountability. And so it's left up to buyer beware. You have to be very mindful of who you're getting your information from. And I say the key is finding your own access to truth sense, does something feel right in the gut, or does this feel like it's not quite right? And that's about the processing, about letting go of our damage, moving through the places where we're locked down, so that we can sense better sense when something is being said to us that doesn't resonate, or it does.
how does one's past life affect them when it comes to believing or doubting what they see in this lifetime?
Boy, that's a big subject. I deal with past life, of course, just because I have to, not because I don't focus there, but I end up going there for people sometimes. And if we're carrying damage from a past life, what we've done spiritually or shamanically is we've disconnected from some of our natural expression, and we carry that disconnect from one lifetime to the next. So we might see the same patterns showing up lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, the same betrayals, the same mistakes, and until that disconnect is reconnected, it will carry lifetime to lifetime. So yeah, the damage that we see from this lifetime that we have to heal is exacerbated by what we came in with.
So how do you focus in on that? And how do you help the person, flush it?
Well, again, it's a shamanic technique. And shamanism is basically an organized set of rituals to help you manage matter at the quantum level. So basically, at the quantum level is where the disconnect has happened. My job as a shamanic practitioner is I go in and I have the person state their intention and bottom line. So when I go in to Journey Trance, what I'm hooking up with is where they've disconnected from what's blocking their intent. So the disconnect is blocking their intent. Because I'd be at it all, for an entire lifetime if I just tried to go in and heal everything. But instead, I'm going in on what's blocking them right now. And sometimes that takes me to past life, and sometimes it takes me to this life. I'd say more this life than past. And then I resonate with the frequency that they've disconnected from, and then offer that to their being for them to reconnect to. From there on, they have to integrate it emotionally, mentally, and physically for it to manifest into the world. And that's an inside job. You can't just expect it to, you pull a tooth, it's gone.
Right.
But you have to be a participant in this kind of work. So it's really not for everybody, but it's probably the most revolutionary and evolutionary practice I know.
How do you stay centered or focused enough when you're out there traveling around to actually get back into your physical being? Is there a chance that if you do something that Gwilda will not be Gwilda because her spirit is out there somewhere just floating around?
Well, there's checks and balances that, as we train in shamanism, that we're taught in order to be able to come and go with very clear intent. And it helps you from getting scattered. But I am what I am, regardless of where I am. It's just I might be a little spacey if I haven't come fully back here.
How does a person know if they have what it takes to become a shaman? Because I know you've got courses coming up very shortly. And how would a person decide whether or not the shamanic path is for them?
Well, the first block of classes I'm holding is a really good place to start because they're 5 classes that are just real foundational, real bottom line. You learn how to do the journey trance, how to travel to upper world and lower world. You learn how to work with power animals, helping spirits. You learn how to create sacred space, and you learn how to work with your life purpose. So that's a foundation that anybody can use that can be life-changing, whether they want to go further with shamanism or not. And if they feel drawn to any of that, that means there's probably something there for them. And then you just take it a step at a time.
Speaking about steps, you and I have to take a step towards the bottom of the hour. As we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, with the hostess with the mostest, the one and only Gwilda Wiyaka. She is the host of The Science of Magic that's heard here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network Saturday nights and Sunday nights from 7 p.m. Eastern until 9 p.m. Eastern. And Gwilda, love having you on. I love the way you think, my dear friend. And we've got to take this break. We'll be back shortly. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. And yes, we are coming to you, as I keep saying, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Astronomers working with the Spitzer Space Telescope have recently had some rather strange observations of a young star. Something appears to be pushing around a large clump of material that is in orbit of this star, and it's moving fast enough to make a difference in observations along a 5-month period. And these observations have given the team working with the Spitzer Space Telescope a rare new look into the early stages of planetary formation. Hello, I'm Mark Halou. Astronomers know that after a star has been born, it still retains a large amount of dust, gas, and sometimes larger pieces of debris that remain in orbit. Over a period of time, typically measured in millions of years, these materials flatten out into a large pancake-like disk, and then clump together, forming larger and larger bodies. Over time, full-sized planets form, and a more mature and stable planetary system settles in, much like our own solar system. The predominant theory of planet formation is based on the idea that once a star and its orbiting dust clouds have settled, the gas and dust and debris begin a snowball effect, slowly gathering up more and more material through orbits, eventually creating large enough bodies that carve out paths of the gas and debris. Over time, most of this material will get picked up by the forming planets, but sometimes a ring of debris is left behind, much like the asteroid belt in our own solar system. Before the launch of the Spitzer Space Telescope in 2003, there were only a handful of stars that were known to have these forming planetary disks around them. But with Spitzer's infrared vision, dozens more of these transitional systems have been found around our Milky Way galaxy. The Spitzer Space Telescope has been able to look in on these forming planetary systems, and scientists are able to determine how far along in the development process the planets are by measuring the amount of light being reflected by the system. James Muzzerol and his team at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore, Maryland, began their examination of these existing transitional disks when they started to take a closer look at the LRLL-31 star system, spending almost 5 months observing their stunning astronomical find. While observing the LRLL-31 system over a 5-month period, Muzzerol and his research team had the opportunity to see a peculiar facet in the planetary development of this star system. Results from their observing showed some very unexpected behavior of reflected light, oftentimes showing large differences in observations over as little time as a week. The observations have been showing light reflecting from the inner region of the star's disk, changing predominantly at a bi-weekly rate. James Muzzerol is the first author on a paper recently published on these exciting new observations. We don't know if planets have formed or will form, but we are gaining a better understanding of the properties and dynamics of the fine dust that could either become or indirectly shape a planet. This is a unique, real-time glimpse into the lengthy process of planet building. One explanation to these wild results is that some object, maybe an already developed planet or even a nearby star, is exerting some extreme gravitational forces onto the disk material. These forces are causing waves and large lumps in the planetary material as it orbits the star. This companion object that Muzzerol and his team believe is orbiting the star is theorized to be much closer in distance to the star than our planet Earth is to our own sun, possibly a tenth of the distance. The distance also explains the speed at which the object must be traveling, which is also why the astronomers are able to view the changes around this star in such a small time scale. The astronomical team at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore, Maryland, will continue to follow up their breakthrough discovery with ground-based telescopes in order to get a better look at the companion object in orbit and to see how the disks are forming. The Spitzer Space Telescope will continue to peer in on LRLL-31 to help keep track of changes in the star system. For the Spitzer Science Center, I'm Mark Halou.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers a certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
All right, Craig, I have to ask you, what coffee commercial did you get that from? Jesus. My ZZ Top friend. Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest. www.thescienceofmagic.net is the website. And thanks for being with us tonight, Gwilda. It's always great having you on the show here. What, in your opinion, is the strongest source for shamanistic work?
I'm not quite sure I understand what you're asking.
All right, let's try this again.
Okay.
Where do you think the strongest power that a shaman uses comes from?
Oh, okay. Well, there's shamanism is a nature-based practice. And during the Long Dark, we considered it an earth-based practice whereby the practitioner would align themselves with the way the earth works, the seasons, the directions, the elements. But when we get into the higher frequency times, it becomes, and this is in ancient history, but it becomes not just an earth-based, but a galactic-based practice as well, where we align with the stars and the planets and the frequencies coming from there. So if a shaman is going to really stand in the true form, they balance heaven and earth in their physical bodies and in their spiritual bodies, in their emotional bodies, in their mental bodies, and then hold that frequency for their people to attune to. That's their sacred duty, is to hold that true balance between heaven and earth so that the people can evolve as the planet does, or devolve as the planet does, because these are all just cycles. And so if we can hold balance at any time, whether we're going up or down the frequency scale, then we have power. There's just no more power than that.
Wow. What was it like for you and other shamans on December the 21st, 2012?
12/21/12. I was talking to you, as I recall.
Well, but no, I mean, what was it like for shamans? You know, we had this mythological date that people were saying the end of the world was coming, you know, at the end of the Mayan calendar, and then the galactic, what was it, the galactic convergence or something?
Yeah, that was 12/12/12. Was the galactic, was a convergence, and then we had that was a time there was a Star Knowledge conference that I was there for that. But you know, at 12/21/12, there was a whole bunch of hype going on around it and this and that, and it was a marker. But it was simply a marker of when we start to really make the tip over point between one era and the other, between the fourth world, as some traditions call it, and the fifth. And basically, it's when we were coming out of one age and going into another, and coming into a time, moving back into a time of balance and unity from a place of extreme polarization. So it's the end of a world in the sense of the Mayan calendar. But what they're calling worlds there is sets of frequency that hold a particular reality together. And so that's starting to disintegrate as we're starting to build the new way of being in the world. So it was way misinterpreted. And I personally, as a shamanic practitioner, of the information I was getting is that it was going to be a process, and it certainly wasn't the end of, you know, the planet as we know it, but rather a frequency change and therefore a reality shift.
Are shamans as negative soothsayers as, not soothsayer, that's not the right word, healers, prognosticators, as other members of the, and I'm going to use this word very loosely, New Age community? You know, some believe that we're in the end days. Some believe that, you know, we're going to go to hell in a handbasket. But shamans don't seem to have that negative approach.
Well, each according to their training, their traditions, and their own limitations. But for the most part, when you're working so much in spirit, you're aligned with unity more, and it tends to be a little bit more uplifting because you're not as subject to the current hype and belief systems. You get a broader viewpoint, and you know the lines between life and death start to fade, and it just gives you much more perspective. And it's not it makes it much easier not to go into negativeville, if you will, when you see that, you know, the earth continues to turn. We've been here for millennia. The cycles come, the cycles go, and we just participate to the best of our ability and live our lives in a good way.
So how would, you know, like over the years, has shamanism changed? Has shamanism kept up with the changing of the times, the evolution of mankind?
It's changed greatly over the years. It was subject to the same thing that everything else was. So as we were coming out of the last era of light, this cycles around by the 12 ages. As we were coming out of the last era of light, everything went into a very dark time, and that was what I call the time of dogma. And everything became dogmatic, including shamanism. And it just became the rituals were what were worshipped, and people fought over what ritual did what and whose rituals they belonged to. And it became dogmatic just like religion did. And now as we're coming back into the light, I see religions transforming. I see shamanism transforming. I see the old way of viewing it as coming into an age where we can use it for modern day people. But it was frozen and held in trust by our native indigenous people, and thank goodness it was, because we really need it right now.
But we hear a lot of shamanistic talk about the native indigenous people here in the Americas. But are there shamans in the United Kingdom and Ireland and Wales, or are they called something else in other parts of the world?
Well, there's a shamanic, like I said, a shamanic practice at the root of every one of our nationalities, to my knowledge. There's Celtic shamanism, Tibetan shamanism, Siberian shamanism, Native American shamanism. There's a shamanic root to every culture, and we call it different things. But if you even look at the Celtic cross that is over the churches in Ireland, it's the sign of the four directions. And a lot of the symbols carved into the old temples or the old cathedrals and everything around the world, and in Notre Dame, every place, have shamanic roots and bases. These cathedrals and temples were built on ley lines that are shamanically divined. So it's really all one. We just got busy trying to make it something different. When we were in the long dark and everybody had their own little court and their own little belief system. It's like when you're in a room and it's dark, you can only see close to the candle. But if somebody throws on the lights, everything changes around you. And you realize, oh, we're all in the same room.
What is the long dark?
That's what I've personally called the time when we're moving through the part of the galaxy that's lower frequency. And so it basically has less luminosity. We have less light to see by. Our chakric system has less light fed into it, and therefore less of our DNA is activated. And so we're really kind of dumbed down during that time. It's not bad. It's just different. It's a different experience. So if we chose to be incarnated during that time, it was for particular lessons. What am I going to be like when I can't see so well? What's that going to be like for me? What can I learn there?
What's the difference between a shaman and a medicine man?
It depends on the tribe and how they define it. But different, all shaman are usually no medicine, the native medicines.
Right.
All the medicine men aren't necessarily shamans. So some of your medicine men are people that are like herbologists. They know the herbs, they know the plants, they know the plant teachers. They treat with those things. The shaman are ones that work at the quantum level in spirit. With spirit's quantum level, same thing, in order to see to the spiritual health of the tribe or the energetic health of the tribe. And that's a different level, like I said. So the shaman can be a medicine man, but not all medicine men are shaman.
If shamanism is so much older than a number of the religious philosophies out there, how come shamanism never won over as being the religion or the way?
Well, it isn't a religion, for one. It's really a healing modality. And by healing, I mean bringing balance back to person, place, or thing. So it's not a religion, although it's attached at the hip to the religions of the culture. Like Celtic shamanism is attached to the hip to Catholicism, Tibetan shamanism is attached to the hip to Buddhism, and so on. But because it's a healing modality that brings balance and empowerment to the individual, the shaman of any culture are the first ones to be annihilated when another culture comes to take them over, because the last thing they want is for the people to be empowered, personally empowered. In fact, again, we were talking to Ilarion, the gentleman from Alaska, the native from Alaska, and when they were taken over by the Russians, the first things the Russians did was come in and kill off all their shaman. So here's an island that for generations has been without shaman. And it's been crippling for him. He told me it's been crippling. So really, different nations have tried to annihilate shamanism. It's almost been wiped off the planet.
Why, though?
Because it empowers the individual, and particularly during these darker times, the systems want to have the power, not have the individual have the power.
Is that why so many people, including myself, believe that technology is deliberately dumbing us down?
Yes, it's all part of the old way, in that a dog eat dog and manipulate. You can't access your own power, so you have to manipulate it out of each other. And that's a parasitical existence. And that's the existence of the frequency or the beliefs and the reality that we're in the process of leaving. And it's going down hard. It's fighting, kicking and screaming. But it is exactly not being supported anymore, where unity and win-win scenarios, and those of us that believe that there's an answer to every problem, that everybody can win. It doesn't have to be I win, you lose.
If shamanism is so much older than the other philosophies out there, you said 50, 60,000 years old?
Yeah, I originally learned it was 40, but then they've been doing studies and they got it up to 50, and lately I've heard it could be as old as 60,000 years old.
Okay, so if shamanism, and I'm not doubting it, is that old, how come more people are not aware of it or not in tune with shamanism?
Like I said, it was almost eradicated. There's not that many practices left. Fortunately, we're having a resurgence of it. And what, like Michael Harner, he's an anthropologist and he's retired now, but he went all over the world submitting himself to heaven knows what, trying to find all the shamanic practices that still existed within the indigenous people. And what he did is he kept what they all had in common and created what he called the core form. So basically the practices they all had in common was the core practice. And it's a very powerful modality, and it's really gone a long ways towards bringing what's left of shamanism back in a viable form. And a lot of people are using that as a springboard to access spirit. Then spirit can tell you what's going on. So you're getting the information from source again. And that's really what shamanism is about, is rather than being subject to the belief systems of the masses or what the systems would tell you, is you're actually getting your information from source.
As a shaman, what is the reason that people seek you out more than any other reason?
When their life isn't working for them. The faces change, the scenario repeats, and they're the common denominator. Relationship issues that keep reoccurring, physical health problems that keep reoccurring, and the doctors are just chasing symptoms around. When you see this sort of thing going on, then there's always, or usually, we look at a esoteric or a quantum level problem where a person is disconnected from part of their natural expression and is creating dysfunction in all the other areas of their life. That's what I see people for.
How would you relate shamanism to Wicca or witchcraft?
I wouldn't. Wicca and witchcraft, I'm no expert on either one, but they are similar to shamanism in that they are ritual-based. They're similar to shamanism in that they're earth-based. They're different than shamanism in that they are pretty much restricted to the ritualistic, earth-based spells, incantations to affect a change at the quantum level. Shamanism works probably, I would have to say, much more expansively than that, in that the practitioner doesn't stay in one place and do incantations to make a change at the quantum level. They go into the quantum level to read it, to see what's going on there, as well as to make a change.
But how did the ancients know about the quantum levels?
Well, they didn't. They didn't have to. This is just the way that we've come to explain it to the Western mind. They would travel there and it would express itself, okay, because our mind can't grasp the quantum level. It doesn't make sense. Electrons and protons are popping in and out of existence. It doesn't make sense to our linear mind. So actually, when we access quantum level information, it needs a translation point. And that translation point is the imagination. And the imagination paints metaphors to represent what's going on at the quantum level. Those metaphors appear as spirits, whether they're good spirits or bad spirits. So if it's imbalance showing up at the quantum level, it looks like a bad spirit. If it's a great balance showing up at the quantum level, it looks like a helping spirit. But these are just metaphors for the energy that's happening at the quantum level. Well, the shamanic practitioner practitioners of old just took it at face value. It's spirits. The good spirit's here or the bad spirit's here. If the bad spirit here, I have to get a bigger good spirit to fix the bad spirit. Well, basically, you're just bringing balance to the quantum level of your life.
So what do shamans believe happens when we leave this plane, we die?
Again, each tradition is a little different. I can speak to the Lakota tradition because that was my original shamanic teacher, was a Lakota elder. And the pipe carrier is responsible for carrying the spirit of the dead after they die for a full year. And so basically, they're a little schizophrenic during that time in that they're walking with two spirits on deck. And then after the full year, then the shaman helps the spirit cross to the other side. And the family does not mention the name again for fear of calling the spirit back. So basically, that's a tradition that in the Lakota way, the family has a full year and all the anniversaries of, the seasons and this and that to mourn their lost loved one, to talk about them, to honor them, to whatever. And then after that full year of mourning, the person is crossed over. And that's how they managed for years to keep from having the situation we have now where there's no provision for that in our culture. And we've got a lot of people that have died but haven't crossed. So we have kind of a overpopulace of disembodied spirits at this level that really could use some help getting to the other side.
So why don't they just cross?
Well, because unless you still carry your personality, whether you're in a physical body or not, and your belief systems are still with you. So if you're afraid you buy into the heaven-hell scenario, and you're afraid you haven't lived a good enough life to go up, you'd rather stay here than go down. That's one of them. And then another one is we have a lot of sudden deaths now. It's like automobile accidents, death under anesthesia, murder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Probably more so than any time in history. And if you go through a shocking death, sometimes the spirit doesn't get it that they're dead. They just kind of stagger on with life and walk around wondering why people are ignoring them. That's a very strange thing, but I've had so many reports from different mediums and this and that it's so.
Listen, we've got about 2 minutes left. Tell our listeners about your course that's coming up and how they can get more information.
Sure. It's a 5-day intensive. It's being held up here in the beautiful Rocky Mountains, and it is on my website, findyourpathhome.com. Or you can call 303-775-3431 to get more information on it. Registration deadline is the 12th of September, and it's going to be held in the middle of October.
And that's going to be held in Coaldale, Colorado, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's right up here in the San de Cristo range. Very beautiful area.
Any pot stores in Coaldale?
Well, not in Coaldale, but in Salida, there's plenty of them.
All right.
It's about 30 minutes away.
Is that a draw for people coming to your course?
No, I absolutely do not condone or recommend the use of drugs because I believe it pushes a person past their substance and they get someplace where they can't process very rapidly. So we don't use that in the school at all. In fact, I'm a state certified occupational school, and the use of drug and alcohol in class or around the class or around the school is not allowed.
But are there other shamanic practitioners that use psychotropic drugs in their practice and their rituals? There is. And what's interesting is in the original shamanic practices, it was the exception rather than the rule. But now a lot of people are kind of using the shamanic venue as an excuse, if you will, or part of the appeal is an ayahuasca journey. So they have these great big tours. They go down there, and just because the person's indigenous doesn't necessarily mean they are a shaman or have the training. And people are coming back kind of messed up, and I end up getting phone calls having to put them back together. Gwilda, as always, great talking to you, my dear friend. You take care of yourself. Look forward to the next time we talk. And Exonation, for more information on the Science of Magic radio show with Gwilda and to listen to past interviews, visit her website at www.thescienceofmagic.net. And Gwilda, thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure, and congratulations on everything you do, my dear friend.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Exo Nation, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night at, 11 o'clock Eastern. As once again, we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So until tomorrow night, my friends, take care of each other. We are one. Take care of the planet, take care of the animals, and always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.